Welcome on Texas football. Time to talk a little grades. We're going to talk offense and defense in this episode. Brought to you by our friends over at Allegiant Digital Marketing. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton. Gerry, let's just give it an overall thought process here on the game itself. Longhorns losing in overtime to Georgia. The game was close, within the grasp of the Texas Longhorns, but the Longhorns just couldn't get over the top.
Now, yeah, I mean, look, Texas outgained Georgia by 12 yards in the game, 389 to 277. You can't miss two field goals from inside in the 45-yard range in a game like that, two of them, because that was the difference in the game going in overtime and not. Quinn was 2 of 10 for 5 yards in the red zone with a dropped interception. That's going to lose you that type of game if you need a touchdown to win it. At the end of the day, Texas, you could argue, outplayed Georgia, but didn't make the one or two plays they needed to win the game. I mean, that's just the way I look at that game. It's like, Georgia only had 277 yards of offense. They had to go to a second-team quarterback. And you had 389 yards in the game, but you missed two right hash field goals, and you couldn't punch it in the end zone in the red zone when you had 10 passing opportunities in the red zone. It's, on some level, you don't deserve to win that game, but you still probably outplayed Georgia for the vast majority of the game.
I will say this. The Georgia defensive line did get the better of the Texas offensive line. Texas defensive line played Georgia's offensive line fairly well, but they found something successful in the run game late, and I think they leaned on that in the short passing game and QB run to win this football game. All right, let's grade the offense and the defense real quick. Quinn Ewers throws for 350 plus, Gerry, but a lot of that was between the 20s. When it got down deep and Texas had to have a play, Ewers, as you mentioned, in the red zone, just 2 of 10. I think that Ewers, obviously, when he doesn't have a run game to help him, is having problems moving the football consistently, particularly in tight spaces. It happened last week against A&M in the red zone. It happened again last night in the red zone against Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I go C- for Quinn, honestly. I mean, I think he made some really good throws. After that first interception, he made some really good throws outside the numbers down the field. I was like, man, Quinn's going to have a big game. But then it's the same thing. You just can't go 2 of 10 in the red zone for 5 yards, and they had an interception dropped, and get a high grade and have 2 interceptions. And again, that third interception dropped. I just can't give that a high grade. I mean, and Texas had 170 yards in the first quarter and 219 the rest of the way. So I can't just give a high grade on that with 2 interceptions, should have been third, struggles in the red zone. So I got to go C-. And I think the box score is better than C-. But when it comes down to winning the game, it was C-.
Pro Football Focus gave him the highest grade on the Texas offense. And I can understand why if you look at the stat sheet, to your point, Gerry. But, there's got to be a value add in the red zone when Texas needs to get 7 instead of 3, especially in games where the running game just has no chance.
You need one play.
We'll grade the Texas offensive line in a little bit, but your quarterback has to give you a little bit better chance. He had 3 throws to the end zone to possibly win this game, and it did not happen. I'm going to go C+, B-. I'm not quite as hard on him as you are. He could have turned the ball over a third time. You mentioned that pass in the red zone that could have been picked. Another red zone misstep maybe, but it was dropped by Georgia early in the game. Look, he was good enough to win in certain games. He was not good enough to win this game. That's the difference. I mean, Quinn would have won 11 other games this year. Yeah. This Quinn could not beat a Georgia team that whipped Texas up front. So I'm gonna go C+, B-. I understand why you went the grade you did as well, because Texas needed more.
They needed him to be a playmaker. One play. and just make
down
a
the
play.
stretch.
Down the stretch. He made a play when your offensive line's getting beat, when you can't run the football. Be a playmaker, one play. Didn't get it.
Yeah, did not get it done. All right, so let's move on to running backs. Boy, Trey Wisner bottled up most of the night. Nowhere to run. Was decent in pass protection, though, Jerry. Only got beat really badly once in pass protection. Jaden Blue with just 4 touches. I'm going to say this. I'm going to go C minus, simply because I don't know if there's any room for Trey Wisner to run. But at the same time, his patience, Georgia made him pay for his patience on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to go B minus because I thought the toughness and, was there. I thought he was decent in pass pro. And again, there weren't a lot of running lanes against Georgia. I mean, Georgia, when you're winning in the A gaps and in B gaps in the run game, man, it can be tough. And I'm going to go B minus because I thought he did his job well without stuffing the box score with big numbers. And again, he's having to carry the whole load for the running backs now because it's obvious Sark doesn't trust Jaden Blue to hold on to the ball in big games.
Or in this one, Jaden Blue was virtually eliminated because getting to the edge on Georgia, not going to happen. No. Other teams, it can happen. Georgia's linebackers, not getting to the edge on them. All right, let's move on to the wide receiver. This group had a good game, actually. Matthew Golden, standout performance, readjusted some balls, made some run yards after catch. DeAndre Moore, perhaps with a breakout game as well. A great move in the open field against Georgia for that touchdown on the RPO in the fourth quarter.
Silas Bolden, couple of key plays.
Absolutely. Silas Bolden. If I'm giving anybody an A or A minus, I would give Texas an A minus. The negative, Isaiah Bond in the pass interference penalty in the red zone. That was big. That put Texas back 1st and 25 instead of 2nd and 10 at the point. A couple of different plays there, Jerry, where Bond, I think, had a couple of missteps. I'll go A minus overall. But really, I could easily go A at wide receiver. This time, they got open against Georgia.
Yeah.
Last time, they did not get open against Georgia.
Yeah, I can't. I can't go A because Wingo had a drop and DeAndre Moore had a drop in the first half, and I think both of those plays were impactful. When Texas couldn't punch the ball in, couldn't finish drives, that DeAndre Moore, that could have been a big play for Texas because he was open over the middle and could have turned up the field. And he came back and made a play. So resiliency is what DeAndre Moore is. But because of the drops in the first half, I can't go there. I think the box score shows that number. So I'm gonna go B plus because those 2 drops are in a first half where nobody's been able to punch the ball into the end zone. It's hard to move the ball against the Georgia defense over the course of a game. I think those drops are impactful.
Yep. All right. I'm definitely in the A range, A minus. All right. Tight end, almost Jerry, and I want to say this, disappointingly absent. They clearly used Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm to stay into block to slow down those Georgia defensive ends. Understandably so, given what Georgia did to Quinn Ewers last time they played. But I got to say this. I would have liked to see Gunnar Helm in more pass routes. I really would have.
Yeah, I agree. Helm gave up the sack against Chambliss too, so that guy's got to go into the grade. I'll go B minus. I mean, there's opportunities, right? Pass pro there has to do more. Helm had the 1 drop as well in the first half, which is uncharacteristic for him. So I'm going to go B minus just because I'm not sure the plays were there to be made in the passing game. And you did have 1 drop. You gave up 1 sack. So I'm going to go B minus for that group.
And they couldn't seal the edges either in block. I'm going to go more C minus actually for Titans. That'll be my lowest grade of the season. But I also think they were playing the best team they've played this season.
Yes.
That position. I mean, they have fast linebackers to cover. They have powerful and quick defensive ends. That's a tough assignment for a group of tight ends. All right. Offensive line. Jerry, I think that I've watched the game twice now live, and then I watched it again this morning. This offensive lineman from guard, center guard got whipped. Not beaten, whipped.
Yes.
Hayden Connor, this is why it's hard. Hayden Connor did not, he moves great. He's a smart player, all these things. He can't lean on people. Not people like this, at least. And DJ Campbell got benched for Cole Hudson. Cole Hudson played a little bit better, but he was going up against these same guys that DJ Campbell and Hayden Connor were. They're good players.
Yes.
Then I mentioned this on Texas Football this morning. Look, Jerry, the tackles against A&M, and it was Trevor Goosby primarily, as well as Cam Williams. They were caving in sides of the A&M defensive line multiple times, at least 15 times or more. I counted twice where Cam Williams and or Trevor Goosby was able to do that. They just couldn't. Georgia's defensive line built different, and it showed
linebacker off the edge too.
Yeah. I mean, they just they gave up 6 sacks. Was it an F performance? No, I don't think so, because your quarterback passed for 350.
Right.
And so they did do better than definite improvement.
Yes.
Time over time versus Georgia.
Yes.
I'm going to go D plus, maybe. It's their second worst performance of the year, other than the first game against Georgia, where we gave them an F, frankly. Yeah. But still not. It wasn't a winning performance, even though Texas had a chance to win this ball game.
Yeah, I was going to go D plus as well. I mean, it's you can't. It's hard to get beat up in the A gaps and really think you're going to have a big offensive showing. Now, look, the Texas offensive line. I mean, Texas had 2 other field goals in the 40 to 45-yard range they missed. So that's why I don't give, like, to your point, that's why I don't give them an F. I give them a D plus, because Georgia, there's one team Texas has played this year that has more talent than them, and it's shown, and it's Georgia. And that's why you recruit the players you do. Steve Sarkisian's #1 class.
Yeah, particularly at defensive line, by the way.
That front seven.
Yeah. Like even Michigan, who has 2 really good defensive linemen, they don't have the depth that Georgia has.
They don't have a Jalen Walker who can play middle linebacker and then slide him outside and have that versatility. I mean, Jalen Walker is that's a different level player, different level talent than teams have.
Offense overall, Jerry, scored just 16 points in regulation. That's a failure in my estimation. But again, they're playing a great team. I think the lack of execution and inefficiency in the red zone just simply came back to bite Texas in the butt. There's just no 2 ways about it. I think the inability for Texas to create a run game of any sort. I mentioned this early on. Georgia was able to create a modicum of a run game in the second half. Texas could never get anything going, ever, really, consistently. Ultimately, Quinn Ewers then could not do what he needed to do in the red zone. You mentioned 2 of 10. And those things, along with a missed field goals, kind of a vicious cycle there for the Longhorns. I'm going to give this offense a C, even though they outgained Georgia and put themselves in a position to win it. They did not. Maybe a C minus, because Texas lost this game.
Yeah, I would go C as well. I mean, it's just 389 yards, pretty good against Georgia, considering you're playing essentially a Georgia home game, right? In the stadium they play in once or twice a year. So it is about what it is. But the yards says it's good enough to win. The first down says it's good enough to win. But again, this is a game you have to play, and you just couldn't not score the ball in the red zone. And if you can't score the ball in the red zone, it's hard to give a team a B offensively.
7s versus 3s. We thought Texas would be the one that scored the 7s and Georgia would be held to the 3s. Both teams held the 3s primarily, but that got to score 7s instead of 3s. All right, Allegiant Digital Marketing is our sponsor. Thank you very much for their sponsorship. Did you know that among the top 9 challenges business owners face, the most difficult ones include finding customers, increasing brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation. For more than 25 years, Allegiant Digital Marketing founder and CEO Chad Markham, a UT grad and instructor of the Digital Marketing Bootcamp here at UT Austin, has helped thousands of businesses overcome these challenges. Take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special and save up to $2,500 in advertising. Visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball to learn more today. That's allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball. Jerry, let's move on to the defense. Boy, I thought the defensive line in the first half held Georgia to 54 yards, dominated the point of attack, really had a great game plan. And then when Georgia inserted a running quarterback, it changed things. They let one big run leak, the 51-yarder by Trevor Etienne. But really, Jerry, they started finding spots where they could run against this Texas team. Off the backside. Vernon Broughton, a week after having his best game as a Longhorn, probably got rooted out more than others. Bill Norton did not have a great game as well. And then I feel like the defensive line, they made some great plays. I mean, Trey Moore knocked Carson Beck out of the game. They created some pressure, but maybe they weren't the difference. I'm going to go B plus for this unit overall. Couple of offsides penalties, one by Ethan Burke, kept the drive alive, another by Colin Simmons, did the same thing. What do you think of the defensive line?
Defensive line, I would go B for defensive line. I mean, look, Texas was still disruptive in this game, and some of it was different spots. But, yeah, I mean, look, it was, you had 3 sacks as a team. One of those was Taft. The other was Trey Moore. The other was Colin Simmons, who, by the way, had his moments again. You had 10 TFLs as a team. 5 of those weren't on 6 of those weren't on defensive line. So you had 4 TFLs. You battled against Georgia. I mean, look, Georgia's running backs had 22 carries for 141 yards. So when you look at that, but one of those runs was 48 yards. Outside of that, against Georgia, that's not bad. I mean, that's not really bad defense. If I told you going into the game that the Georgia would have a 48-yard run, but outside of that run, they'd have, 83 yards on 21 carries? We'd have taken that all day, right?
Not me. Getting over 100 yards rushing against the Texas defense allows you to play a more controlled type of game. I think what really hurt Texas in the run game, Jerry, wasn't even Etienne as much as the quarterback development.
The injury, the injury to Beck, that changed the game, especially for that first drive of the second half when you were adjusting to Gunnar Stockton, because then your edges had to play a little different game. They had to play more contained, especially on that left side, because Gunnar Stockton likes to flush right. He likes to play going to his right. It was evident in that game. But I think the Texas defensive line played well enough to win the game.
Yeah,
not as good as Georgia though.
Yeah, no, not as good as Georgia. Linebacker's going to be a little different. Texas linebackers, not their best performance. Anthony Hill overran a couple of plays. Leonga Lafau, we did not see much of. David Benda played in his place quite a bit. Ty Anthony Smith got some action as usual. What did you think of the Texas linebacker play, Jerry? Because I think this may have been, for the second consecutive time against Georgia, they seem to be the one team that the Texas linebacker crew has problems with a little bit, just enough to give a sliver of victory for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, look, Georgia has 3 tight ends they throw a football to. That's the only team Texas faces as 3 tight ends that they throw the ball to. And then you have the different types of runs that Georgia has. The slant run, which is really set up to be a backside run, right? So your backside backer has to be really good in a game against Georgia. And I'm for the linebackers. I mean, Anthony Hill had the fumble recovery. They had some plays in this game. Anthony Hill 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, fumble recovery, but I think he also missed some gap assignments in this game. David Benda 4 tackles and a forced fumble. I mean, on the stat sheet, it looks better, I think, than the actual tape will look. So I'll go C+ for the backers.
What about I think I'm going to say C- actually. Yeah. Benda caused a fumble, by the way, that was not recovered, but man, Texas got unlucky with that. Colin Simmons forced one as well. Unlucky there. The ball rolls out of bounds. All right, let's talk a little bit more now, Jerry, about the secondary. Texas DBs at this point, Jerry, strong again last night. Come up with a big interception when they needed it most. Andrew Makuba may have had his best game as a Longhorn. 11
Best game in college. Best game in college, Bobby.
Yeah, just tremendous game. Very
11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, forced fumble, pass breakup, almost had an interception. He played physical against the run. He played phenomenal.
Oh, that hit on Gunnar Stockton. I'm still surprised the ball wasn't fumbled. His helmet was fumbled after that, So I think that Andrew Makuba, really, if there was a star of the game for Texas, I would give him the star of the game, actually, out of everybody. But in all, it was not the secondary that caused issues. They really could not throw anything downfield all night. And when they could, the Georgia receivers were not very good. We saw a lot of Gavin Holmes in this game. I think that's important to note. I think Texas wanted to match up his speed with the speed of Arian Smith, just to keep him in front of him. Manny Muhammad, good player, not a sub 4.4 guy like Arian Smith and or Gavin Holmes. So we'll see how that plays out in the future, whether or not they go back to Manny Muhammad now in the future, because when you have a speed guy like Georgia has, Gavin Holmes clearly has a role in this defense. Jalen Gilbo with a key missed tackle in overtime against the tight end, ducked his head instead of actually keeping his head up. That cost Texas instead of keeping it to a 1 or 2 yard gain to that tight end, it ended up being a 9-yard play and got Georgia ahead of the sticks. So all in all, though, I think this Texas secondary played really well. I'm going to give them a B+, maybe even an A-, because Makuba, he was a revelation at times on Saturday night.
Yeah, I give them an A-. They certainly played at a high level. Manny Muhammad had a PI, legitimate PI, right? Arian Smith's really fast. He looks like a first rounder until it's time to catch a football, by the way. So getting beat by Arian Smith, nothing wrong with that. He's an elite prospect that does not have elite hands. But so I give the secondary an A-, because the reality is if Makuba doesn't play at the level he does, then Texas might not have got that game in the overtime.
Yeah, absolutely. And Barron with a key interception. Just wish the house that defense overall, Jerry, good performance, not great. Especially not. Look, they did have 2 stops inside their own 10.
Yeah,
forced field goals. But I think that the insertion of Gunnar Stockton in the QB run game changed the game, and they didn't react quite quickly enough to that. And even in overtime, they let that happen to them. B+, A- for the defense, in your opinion?
I gotta go A-. At the end of the day, it's not perfect, but because that's an A+ or a perfect score. But you gave up 277 yards, 67 plays, 4.1 yards per play. I mean, you had an interception. You forced 4 fumbles. You had 10 tackles for loss. You had 3 sacks. You did your job to win this game. Texas did their job to win this game. I guarantee you, going into this game, if you had said, Kirby, you're going to have 277 yards and they're going to force 4 fumbles and interception, he'd say, we lose by 14.
Yep.
I give him an A-.
That I will agree with. The question I have there is, at what point did this Texas defense really lose control of the game? And I think it lost control after that 4th down punt fake.
It's a great call.
Gunnar Stockton, and now we're going to go on to special teams. Gunnar Stockton had a good first series and let him down to score to start the second half, but then looked like he was behind and getting overwhelmed a little bit by the game. Special teams, though, Kirby Smart calling a fake punt in the 4th quarter in his own territory, worked like a charm. Then Georgia goes down, scores a go-ahead field goal. Also eats up 9 minutes of clock in total. Rests his defense for the rest of the way. That was a key play in this game. Special teams overall for Texas, F, D-. What do you want to give them? I mean, other than Silas Bolden and his punt return, Burt Auburn 4 of 6 on the evening. But those 2 that he missed in regulation, while not chip shots, I think were certainly makeable, Jerry. We saw Clemson beat SMU on a 56-yarder at the close of regulation. I don't think Texas has a weapon at field goal. Last year they had a weapon at field goal kicker. Now everybody's crossing their fingers and toes, hoping that he makes them. That's a categorical difference than it was a year ago.
Yeah, special teams for me is an F. I can't give it anything higher than that. Silas Bolden had a good punt return. Bad kickoff return decision.
Coming out right at the start. That's the second or third week in a row where they've made this bad decision. It hasn't worked yet. Why do you keep going back to it, guys?
Yeah. And look, giving up the fake punt was a momentum change. The only momentum changing play Georgia truly had in this game, other than Gunnar Stockton's first drive. That was the momentum changing play Georgia had. And, 4-6 on field goals and 2 right hash misses, 42 and 51 yards. You should have won the game. Texas should have won this game, but they did not execute in special teams on a championship level by any stretch Saturday. I give them an F.
No, a punting game again, not great either when they had to punt. Jeff Banks has been a really good special teams coach for the Longhorns. I think they missed Joe DeCamillis, who left the team this past year to go to South Carolina as a full-time assistant. That may be something that Sark wants to look into over the offseason, and that's getting another key special teams hire, like he did with the nickel coach, Scotty Hazelton, that's really helped that portion of the defense. That coaching, additional coaching, whenever you have one guy focusing on one spot, instead of the tight ends and special teams, I think that given this day and age in college football where you have unlimited resources to put towards coaching, you do it. And we'll see whether or not that happens this offseason. But special teams, Burt Auburn, look, I'll say this, going into probably October, November, I would have told you that Texas isn't going to be looking in the portal for a kicker. Now I don't know if they will or not.
Right.
I got to be honest. Burt Auburn has been too inconsistent at some level to be assured a spot for the Longhorns.
It's hard to call a game if you're Sark, if you're trying to keep the ball off a hash.
Yes.
It's hard to have your playbook fully open if you have to think about, I can't have the ball in the right hash on a field goal attempt. That's a tough spot to be as a play caller.
He kept it left. I don't know if you noticed it's one of those passes to Ryan Wingo in the fourth quarter. Those were all from the left hash, and he repeatedly went down the sideline on the left side to Ryan Wingo. All right, that's going to do it for grades. Finally, we want to say thank you again to our sponsor, and that is Allegiant Digital Marketing. If you're a business that struggles with any of the following, finding new customers, consistent leads, or marketing services to promote your business that actually works, give founder and CEO Chad Markham with Allegiant Digital Marketing, an Austin-based advertising agency, a call. If you're ready to start making money in your business and grow with confidence, visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball and get a free marketing plan. Plus, you can save up to $2,500 in advertising with their Hook 'em Horns special today. All right, Jerry, that's going to do it for the grades. We will talk more about Texas and the college football playoff and other aspects of the Longhorns today. For Gerry Hamilton, I'm Bobby Burton. Hook